What's up, everybody? We're back with another $2 deck tech for 2DH format we created to have a new meta for Commander and make the game more accessible to new players and players on a budget. Something else we've done with 2DH is we've created a 1 versus 1 format for all the spikes, like my friend Ryan over here. He's going to show you his Narset Enlightened Master deck. It's one of the top 5 decks in the format. He recently won a tournament with it, and it's just absolutely filthy, as every good 1v1 deck should be.
Hi, I'm Ryan. So this deck has gone through many phases. It started out as enchantments, it moved through to combo, and now it's pretty much just control. It's got a little bit of that aggro, not a whole lot though. I'm going to start off with a few of the key Narset cards. I'm going to move on to the end game blowouts, and then I'm going to move on to the early game, your draw, and your removal. So starting out, we are going to have Sunder. This is probably one of my favorite cards in the format. I'm not sure how long it'll stay in, but right now it's here, and it's been here for a good while. So bounce all lands to your opponent's hands. First off, you know Narset. I'm playing the spells for free. The Sunder doesn't do a whole lot to me. This is a really, really big blowout win con. I suggest it in every Narset deck. It's great. It's an instant. Gotta love it. Jockle Hops. The old school big boom, it's great. Creatures, lands, everything. Your enchantments, if you have them, they stick around. That's nice. Zur's Weirding is one of the inspirations for this deck, really. It's fantastic. Players play with their hands revealed. Anytime a player would draw a card, any other player may pay 2 life to have that card discarded. I don't draw any of my cards. As soon as I get this Zur's Weirding out, if your opponent does not have an answer to it as it is, they've lost the game. They will no longer, they just can't play anymore. It's pretty good. You have to be able to have a board state that will get by their board state in order to get the value out of it, but if you can put those two things together, you've won a game. Zur's Weirding is that good. Long-term plans. This grabs things like Zur's Weirding. We don't have Mystical Tutor, we don't have Enlightened Tutor, we've got long-term plans, it's good. Strionic Resonator copies Narset's ability, gets you a lot of extra value out of her. Playing up to 8 spells a turn for free is just enormous. You can't not run this card. Brainstorm, sometimes your expensive stuff's going to get stuck in your hand. You put it back on top, you're generally getting a lot of value out of that. Brainstorm. Vanishing. Vanishing is good. So this is pretty much just the Narset tech. This keeps her out of the way of Jockle Hops, blockers, that sort of thing. You still get all of the value out of her ability. It's a great card, really low barrier to use. This deck is almost entirely blue, so that double blue cost really isn't as bad as it might seem. Like, you can get that triple blue pretty easily, even early game a lot of the time. Otherworldly Journey dodges all that big board wipes. It's a pretty good card. Spirit Mantle gets you through there. Pro Creatures is really nice as well. Gift of Immortality is more reusable than the other ones, but it's a little bit slower. It's more for me than worrying about my opponents and worrying about losing combats and stuff. I really want to have Narset there after the Jockle Hops. Gift lets me do that. You're going to lag behind in the early game a whole lot. You're going to take some damage. You'll probably get down to like 15, 10 life. Steal the Godhead is one of your only ways to gain life, and it's good. Try not to lose Steal if you can. Relentless Assault, that gets you extra triggers off of Narset. It's a wonderful, wonderful card. World at War is even better if you can cast it from your hand. We got Wildfire there. Everybody sacks 4 lands. If you're hitting your opponent's mana base, most of the 1v1 decks in the format are at least 2 colors. It's screwy. It kills most of the generals in the format, including your own, but you know, we have ways to deal with that. Razia's Purification. Generally, you're going to choose something like Narset and a land, or Narset and a land and a Strionic Resonator. You can be the judge of that. It's generally not that hard a choice, though. You'll know when you get Razia's Purification what you want to keep. We recently lost the other extra turn spell in the format, which was Part the Water Veil. It's good. As long as we have Temporal Trespass, we're still doing well here. It's a great card. The Delve is easy. You're going to be just crapping through cards the whole game. It's not unreasonable to play this card for 3 to 5 mana most times. So the whole point to this deck is making sure you get Narset out fast and get her out consistently. These depletion lands are probably the best lands in the format when you're at 3 or more colors. Even 2, they're probably really good. They come into play tapped, they have 2 counters on them. You can remove a counter to add 2 mana of one of these colors, either white, blue, or red. And when the last counter is removed, you sacrifice it. These are really fast. If you go turn 1 into one of these, and turn 2 into one of these Ramos artifacts after you play another land, that set you up with 5 mana right there, and you'll have 6 mana by turn 3. So we've got 3 of these Ramos artifacts, we've got 3 of these depletion lands, hopefully maximizing our chances to get her out. Turn 3 is very rare, turn 4 is much more common. She's almost always out by turn 5. Generator Servant is the only source of haste in the deck for her. I'm not nearly as worried about getting her out swinging as I am about getting her out and keeping her sticking to the board. So he's nice because most people who've played this deck aren't going to expect her to do a swing on the turn she comes out. So he's a little bit of a tech that way. Pentad Prism is probably one of the best rocks in this format. It's not reusable, but it's very, very fast, which is what we're going for. Again, it'll provide 2 mana right when you need it to of any color. That's great. I have a 3-color general. That means I'm not worried anymore. Basalt Monolith pays half her cost, pretty self-explanatory. You're generally not going to pay the 3 to untap it again whenever you want to, but it's good the once when you need it. Everflowing Chalice, we've got Expedition Map. I'm not running Glacial Fortress. You can run Glacial Fortress to grab this. I generally grab Command Tower with it. Is it Signet? Boros Signet, Zoria Signet. We've got the general Signets. Felwar Stone. A lot of ramp, a lot of rocks. Next, we've got our consistency. We've got a lot of little card draw things. We've got Preordain. You saw the Brainstorm earlier. Ponder. Frantic Search is fantastic. Free draw, filtering, it's wonderful. You're basically playing a 98-card deck. Why not? Windfall. If you windfall your opponent's lands out of their hand after you have sundered, they're not going to have a good game. You draw a lot off of that. It's not as uncommon. I've done it enough times that I have a reputation for it. Factor Fiction, just Factor Fiction. Archaeomancer, generally you're going to want to hold Archaeomancer for if somebody counters your extra turn spells, they counter your Jockle Hops. This gets it around there again. Future Sight. Future Sight is Future Sight. Run Future Sight. Got Treasure Cruise. Don't not run Treasure Cruise. Getting into the control, this first half is going to be prevention, and the second half is going to be more removal. We got the Silence. That can be like a Time Walk early game. Got Swan Song, one of the best counter spells in this format. I'm not worried about your 2/2 Flying Bird. I've got First Strike. Got the Condescend. We've got Power Sink. If you counter somebody's spell with Power Sink and they don't pay for it, it taps all their lands, and they're not going to be holding up removal or interaction with you for the rest of the game. So normally I try to avoid X spells in this deck. Condescend and Power Sink made it. Power Sink's got some secret utility there that not a lot of people are expecting. Mana Leak. We've got Negate. We've got Arcane Denial. We've got 10 counter spells in here total. They're all pretty good. Moving on to more of the removal, we've got Boomerang. Bounce is really strong in 1v1. Off-tempoing your opponent is just about as good as actually dealing with a threat permanently. Putting your opponent turns behind is a big deal. So Boomerang and Snap, they both help with things like that. They also both return my general to my hand if she's going to die. These are big things. Snap especially will let me replay her right after. Karmic Justice is good. The non-creature clause does not really come into play here. There's only 2 creatures in this whole deck. Everything else is here for support. If they kill something of yours, Karmic Justice is going to bite them back, generally in the lands or in a big creature that would be blocking. We've got Oblivion Ring. This is general off-tempoing. Try not to waste Capsize. Your opponent is going to be hurting on resources, and they're going to be back and behind for most of the mid and end game. This will keep them playing defense and trying to play more than one thing a turn, even if that's not always the best, because they know you're sitting on that Capsize. It's really, really strong in this deck. Try not to waste it. Wipe away. Split Second is good. Divine Presence is a tech that I'm running that most people I have seen are not. It's generally for the Voltron matchup. If somebody's hitting me for like 14, it turns into 3. If they've got double strike, it turns into 6. It's much smaller numbers, easier to deal with when you've got 30 life. This is probably a better card in a 40 life format, but it works for what I need it to here. When it comes up, it's great. Citadel Siege. You are almost never going to choose cons when you play Citadel Siege. The +1/+1 counters on Narset are not a big deal. Tapping down your opponent's blockers is a much bigger deal. Keeping them from attacking you, keeping them from attacking is what you're going for in this deck. As much hurt on your opponent as possible. Pendril Mists is probably one of my favorite blue cards ever printed, and I'm really glad that it's budget. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with Tabernacle at Pendril Vale. This is that strapped to an enchantment. And when none of the other cards I'm coming in against are more than $2, this might as well be that good. Washout is good. I know my general is 3 colors, but this hits permanents, it hits all sorts of things. Again, off-tempoing my opponent is probably going to do more to them than it does to me. If I play Narset, again, I'm gold. Generally, though, board wipes like this come into play mostly against the green and aggro decks that you'll be seeing, and so I frequently bounce more of my opponent's board than mine. Day of Judgment and Hostilities, Blasphemous Act. This is a pretty good one. The deck is pretty straightforward. It doesn't have a whole lot of secrets. It's an angry deck. It's not very nice. I don't know what to say.
Well, what's interesting about it is, the obvious build for Narset in a non-budget format is, a lot more planeswalkers, acceleration, things like that. What you've done adapting it to the 2DH format seems like a lot of those tempo plays and 2-for-1s and early games, so that you basically, those 2 extra turns you sort of get in 2DH to set up, you're taking that away from your opponent, and then you're giving them a threat that's very difficult to answer. So I love this version of the build. It's very controlling, like you said. It's not like super all in with extra combat phases and things like that, and it gets there. So thanks for doing the deck tech, Ryan. If you guys are interested in 2DH, please check out the links below. We've got the Facebook group, we've got the full deck list for Narset, and we have more deck tech videos. Thanks for watching, you guys.